Welcome back to Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you by Extreme Exteriors and American Family Insurance, the Kim Bennett Agency. Our next story comes out of Maryland, Annapolis, Maryland. The Maryland Supreme Court is took on a case over condominium repairs and are sending things back to a lower court. What's going on, you ask? Maryland's High Court ruled this week that the state's Consumer Protection Act could apply to disclosures made in a resale certificate by a condominium association and its management company during the sale of a unit.
Maybe we should just explain that a resale disclosure is something required by state statute, usually.
That's right.
For the seller of a property to provide to the buyer. And what it does is discloses the condition of the property. In a homeowners association, the association also has to provide a second disclosure that discloses the financial health of the property, talks about rules and regulations of the association. Basically, you're telling that buyer everything they need to know to make an informed decision.
Yes, and that we've always felt is a very good thing.
That's right.
The way the laws have been written, not only in Minnesota, but I think in other states too, provide for that. What was taken... what they took a look at here in this particular instance is they felt that the people who are in a homeowners association, the board now, and the management company, that they weren't doing their job in properly disclosing information.
They said, this first paragraph says that they believe that situation should be applied to the Consumer Protection Act. So now they're saying that general public needs to be protected from homeowner associations, aren't they?
Yes, you're right. And what makes this such an interesting case is that, all along people have looked at people who live in a homeowners association. Those are just a homeowner. They have been considered what's referred to as the sheep, right?
In the real estate transaction,
In the world of real estate, they say that there are the sheep and the wolves. The wolves have a little bit more knowledge and understanding, therefore the wolves are the professionals in any real estate transaction. Yeah, real estate agents when they sell. Property managers because they're licensed agents, right. Developers. Those are the wolves.
Landlords,
but landlords are in that as well. Mm-hmm. But now here is something that's changing a little bit. They're saying other board members who are homeowners, you know what? They're more like wolves
in this situation
than they are like sheep, and I think that's what makes
a shift,
it interesting,
isn't it?
It is.
That's a shift,
and why this all came out is that there was the Tomes Landing Condominium Association in Port Deposit, Maryland. And apparently a number of homeowners purchased in the association, and there were a number of real serious defect issues that were going on. The association, I think, was probably built sometime in the 90s. And so in the late 90s, early 2000, the association was concerned, and they started doing some research and some background.
Some investigation
to try and find out what was going on. And some of the homeowners said, we really feel that the board and management company knew that all of this stuff was going on, and had we known ahead of time,
had they disclosed that to us when we were going to purchase,
we wouldn't have bought. And now here we are stuck, and now it's coming out that everybody in the association has a special assessment of $30,000 to $40,000.
Wow. So these new owners are saying, hey, you know what? You were required to disclose this to us before we purchased. That's what that resale disclosure certificate is all about, and you didn't. You didn't tell us the extent of the problem. You didn't tell us how much it was going to cost. You didn't tell us there was going to be a special assessment. Therefore, you're in the wrong. We're suing, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
That frames it, I think, very well.
All right.
What's real interesting here is trying to determine who knew what when. because
there's where the court has to step in, isn't it?
Yes, and what's interesting is that it appears that even at this juncture, the Supreme Court in Maryland said we're not sure of that quite yet.
Oh.
I think,
and that's why they handed it back to the lower court, apparently,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they were saying, I don't think we really fully understand who knew what. The homeowners were saying, yes, you knew full well. And the board and management company said, no, we didn't.
Yeah.
We were wondering.
Yeah.
And so it begs the question, when is someone supposed to disclose something? What do you think, Tony?
Well, that's it in a nutshell. Should I disclose to you something that I just heard about today that might be a problem? Should I disclose something to you that we've just started to investigate? Yeah. Should I disclose something to you? I have no idea what the cost is. You're right. It's a matter of degrees and timing. Mm-hmm. Generally, Gene, you've taught us, though, at New Concepts that anything we think may have a material impact on an owner should be disclosed. Yes. In fact, you've even said if you had a board meeting last night where they started talking about something substantial, like, I don't know, putting in a tennis court, you should disclose that the very next day that the board is even considering this.
Yes.
You've always been one to err on the side of too much information,
of disclosure, because it was drilled in my head early on, as a real estate agent, and then as a broker too, and then being a broker with a number of real estate agents for a number of years too. For me, the real critical thing is something considered a material fact. Okay. And the idea is that if something is considered a material fact, material enough for someone that it would change their mind, I think you have an obligation.
You're legally
to share.
Obligated. Yeah.
Now, of course, when it comes to disclosures, when you take a look at disclosures that a seller needs to fill out, whether they live in a single-family home or an association, they'll still fill one out for their realtor when they put a home on the market. They're asked a number of questions. The questions that they are asked are very specific because it's state statute. The state statute said we want to ask sellers these questions on these items,
right?
And now that you're being asked, you're required by law to be truthful.
I see. And I remember from past real estate transactions I've been involved in, it a lot of it has to do with water or leaking or groundwater infiltrating. You have to disclose any kinds of problems you've had like that, right?
Yes, and over the years, of course, there's so much more. There was a home a number of years ago. It was in St. Louis Park. It was called the Snake Home. Well, there wasn't anything that was back then. We're talking back in the 80s. When there wasn't anything.
There wasn't
said,
this consumer protection.
You had to disclose about a snake. Well, they ended up finding out a number of snakes just slithering underneath this.
It was built on top
step.
of some snake's home.
They tore it away, and they found thousands of snakes down there.
Oh my gosh!
But the people who owned it, they didn't know. What the extent was.
They only knew that they found a snake once in a while in the basement.
This was really weird, And so I can see that people. How far do you go? I think you need to go. If someone asks a question, I think you need to answer truthfully.
Yeah.
What people don't like in the case of a homeowner association, though, and this is where people have had difficulty with us, is the board will mention that we're considering a special assessment for a few items.
Right.
So we have
to disclose that.
So we have a manager that will disclose.
The association has to disclose that to a potential buyer.
So we put that in the disclosure that the board is thinking of a special assessment, and it might be for these 2 or 3 items.
We consider that to be a material fact.
Yes. Now what happens? A buyer looks at that and says, well, wait a minute. What is it going to cost? What is this special assessment? And we say, I don't know.
Because we don't know yet.
Yes, they just started talking about it.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. You can't bring this up. And so everybody in realtors a lot of times get upset with us.
Yeah.
Sellers get upset with us because they say, let this alone. You're just
don't say anything.
You're just wrecking the deal. But no, I think there is an obligation. Now, it was interesting, Maryland here, they did come out and said the court did grant, they said they've vacated the grant of summary judgment and opined that the Consumer Protection Act does apply to associations, but the association is only required to disclose only approved, not proposed or contemplated capital expenditures in the operating budgets they provide to prospective buyers. So at least
they drew a line. They drew a line.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what you must disclose. This you do not have to disclose.
Yes, and that hasn't been the case here in Minnesota. But I think because of that, I think it's always important to remember and take the time to, if you think it's going to be a material fact, it's better.
It probably is.
It's better to err on the side of disclosing.
Of caution, yeah.
And it's also better to err on the side of allowing for continual breaks. And we're going to do that right now. So listen to these few commercials, folks. We'll be back after these messages.